Hi guys, I'm Nicole and today I'm going to teach you how to make this lovely fancy linen stitch square. I love a linen stitch square. That is what is behind me. These are all linen stitch squares, as well as the basis of projects like this scrappy happy little thing, as well as full-on baby blankets that are just big concentric linen stitch squares. So today I'm going to take you through the basic stitches as well as how to make it a little bit fancier with this double crochet and this single crochet, reverse single crochet crab stitch edging. So thank you and let me know what you think. All right, today I'm going to show you how to do a linen stitch square, and we're also going to add in some other fancy stitches along the way. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to grab your hook, pair of scissors, and your yarn. I'm using a chunky weight yarn. It is actually Ella Rae's Chunky Merino Superwash. I do not know if they still make this particular yarn, but I found it at a local yarn store, and it had a little bit of sun bleaching, which you might see a little bit in the video, which I think adds character to the yarn, but it's also my very favorite shade of blue, so I needed to have it. And then I'm using a size I hook, and that is a 5.5 millimeter hook. So we're going to start with a little knot. I always start with a little knot at the beginning of my yarn, just so my slip knot doesn't go anywhere. So I'm going to start with a slip knot after I have my little knot right there. Perfect. And then we're going to get started. We are going to start with chaining 2. So 1, 2, and then we're going to be working into this first chain for our first round. So we're going to single crochet into that chain. We're going to insert our hoop or our hook into the loop, yarn over, pull up 1 loop, yarn over, pull up another loop. Now we're going to chain 3 to create our first corner, and then we're going to go back into that first loop for our next single crochet. So you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both. And we're going to kind of complete that as we go around the beginning of our square. So I'm going to chain 3 again, go back into that first loop, and I'm going to kind of crochet over my knot so that it gets tucked in, you can't really see it. Chain 3 again. We're going to do our 4th single crochet into that original chain, and then we're going to chain 3, and we're about to close our square. So as you can see, we have a little bit of a cross in the middle of it, and then we've got 3 corners. To complete our first round, we're going to be slip stitching into the top loops of our original single crochet, and then we're going to slip stitch into the gap. Now there are a lot of ways to do a linen stitch square, just the way that there are some variations on a granny square. So for me, once I have slip stitched into the single crochet and into the gap, I start to single crochet right here. I don't chain up one the way that you usually do when you're creating another round, because I have found that it creates a hard bump, like a hard bumpy line, when all of those are right there. So I always just go in, do a single crochet, chain 3, and then we're going to do another single crochet into that same gap, our same corner, and we've now started our corner for our next round. And sometimes it can be kind of hard to tell where you are as you're going around, especially if this is a new project for you. So you can always add a little stitch marker at the corner where you are starting your next round. That way it can help you read your crocheting. So we're going to go around again, and then at every corner we're going to have a single crochet, 3 chains, and another single crochet, and over every single crochet we're going to chain 1. So for this one, we've got a single crochet right there. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to go into another corner. So we're going to single crochet, chain 3, single crochet back into the same corner. If I can do it without having my yarn split. Chain 1, because we got to go over this guy. Our next corner, chain 3, back into the same corner. We're going to single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 3, single crochet, and we're going going to chain 1 and we're about to close our next round. So as you can see, we have increased the size of our square, and we're going to be moving concentrically outward. So to close your round, you're going to slip stitch to the top of your single crochet after you've chained 1. Let me make sure I show you. After you've chained 1, you're going to slip stitch right here, and then you're going to slip stitch over into the corner. You're going to single crochet, you guessed it, chain 3, single crochet into the same corner, and then now the first time we only had 1 single crochet that we were going to be going over. This time we have 2, and as you increase, you're going to have more single crochets on this side. So for every single crochet, you're going to be adding a chain to go over it, and for every gap, like the one we have right here, you're going to be putting a single crochet there. So we've done our corner right here. We're going to chain 1. We're going to go into this gap, single crochet, chain 1. We're back on another corner. So we're going to single crochet, chain 3, single crochet into the same corner, and we're going to do the same thing on this side. So we're going to chain 1 because we've got to go over our single crochet right here, single crochet into the gap, chain 1, single crochet right here in the corner, chain 3, single crochet back into the same corner, chain 1, single crochet into the gap, chain 1, single crochet into the corner, chain 3, if I can get my yarn to cooperate, single crochet into the same corner, chain 1, single crochet into this gap, chain 1, and we're going to close the round again. So we're going to slip stitch into the top of this guy, slip stitch into the gap, and then we're going to single crochet 1, chain 3, single crochet into the same corner. Usually when I am finding a good resting place, like when I'm trying to take a break for something, I usually will stop at a corner, especially if you've got a stitch marker where you can plop it right there so you know where you were and where you left off. It's usually a good place to end. One of the things I wanted to show you, and that's if you are going to be continuing to go around, not if you're stopping. What I wanted to show you is that one of the things I really like about linen stitch squares is that there's a couple ways to count how many rounds you've done. So you can count from the inside out. We see we have 1, 2, 3 single crochets. You can also count by the sides to see how many single crochets you have. So I can count 1, 2, 3. Now, if you're looking at this and saying, Nicole, I have no idea what we just did, I don't understand how to read this. One of the reasons why I did a chunky yarn is to show you kind of how, I'm going to stretch it out, how we have created gaps and single crochets. So it kind of looks like a concentric checkerboard when you spread it out like that. So you can see, oh, for every gap, I put a single crochet there, and then I added a gap over every single crochet. So I'm going to go around a couple more times. I think I'm going to do 7 rounds total, and then I'm going to show you how we can make this even fancier. All right, I'm back. So I have started my 7th round, and I can do that by counting up from the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is my turning corner. This is the beginning of my next round as I'm going around. Or I can count by the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 single crochets. So I'm going to finish this corner, come around, and then we're going to add in a new stitch. So I've done my single crochet right here. I've chained 1 to go over this guy. I'm going to work in the corner. So I'm going to single crochet once, chain 3, single crochet back into the same corner, chain 1, go over this guy, single crochet into the gap, chain 1, and do that across. Now, if you are learning how to do this for the first time. If you've never done the linen stitch and it is hard for you to tell where the gaps are and where the single crochets are, so if I spread it out, you can tell a little bit better. As you're practicing, you might want to crochet a little bit looser than I'm doing, or go up a couple of hook sizes so it's more airy, so it's easier for you to tell what are gaps and what are single crochets. So I've single crocheted again, I've chained again, going to single crochet into the gap as I go across. And because you're doing this as a concentric square, each round that you go out, you're adding stitches. All right, so this is my last single crochet that I'm going to be single crocheting into that gap. I'm going to chain one, I'm going to slip stitch, and it can be kind of hard to tell here. The slip stitch that you're slip stitching into the top of your single crochet is right here. This is like the leading up to that. So you go single crochet into the top of this guy. You've created that gap. Now you're going to slip stitch into the top of that guy, slip stitch into the gap. Now, this is usually where we would start to single crochet and go around. And you can do that. You could make a whole blanket just out of doing this. I've done that a ton for baby blankets. You could start adding in other colors. You can do everything that you need to just from this. You could do a scrappy blanket where you do a bunch of squares that are this size or smaller or bigger. Completely up to you. But we're going to do something a little bit fancy now. So usually we do not chain up one. This time we are, because we're going to be doing some double crochets this time. So we're just going to do one chain, and then we're going to double crochet into this gap. So yarn over, go into the gap, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So now instead of having a single crochet here, we're having a double crochet. We're still going to be chaining 3 on all of our corners, but instead of doing a single crochet in the gaps, now we're going to be doing double crochets. And what that's going to do is going to give us a lot more space in between our stitches in the top of the row. So the pattern is still the same in the fact that you're doing a stitch and then you're doing a chain in between the stitches. Now we're just doing double crochets instead of single crochets. So I'm going to chain 1, double crochet into the gap, chain 1, double crochet into the next gap, and go around my square. I did something very similar to this where I switched the single crochets for double crochets to create this really pretty gap effect. And this one, it kind of looks like columns, when I did my Love of Linen shawl. And I actually think it would be very pretty as a linen stitch top, and then having these pretty little gaps. So maybe you'll see that from me one day. All right, so I've done this whole side. I went into each of the gaps. I just double crocheted instead of single crocheted, and I just chained in between each of them. So now I'm at another corner. I've already done my first double crochet into the corner. I'm gonna chain 3, loop, double crochet into the same corner, the same way that we did with the single crochets, except this time we just changed the stitch out. And I'm going to repeat this around our square. I already love the way this side looks. All right, so now I have gone around all 4 of my corners where I'll move that. All I did was double crochet where I had been single crocheting before. And I think it looks really cool already. But now I'm going to finish this row, and then we're going to do some more of our regular linen stitch rows. So chaining 1, double crocheting into the gap, chaining 1, double crocheting into the gap. You could totally play with just these 2 styles as you're going around with deciding how many single crochets you want, how much solid space, and how many gaps you wanted. as you went around. You could totally play with that because that's a lot of fun to do. For this one, I did 7 rows of single crochet in the middle before I added my first double crochet. I'm just going to call that a double crochet gap row. So now I've come around to the beginning corner, and it's a lot easier to tell obviously on this round than it was on the other ones because they stand up so much taller, as well as they look a lot different. So I've done a double crochet into my last gap. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to slip stitch into the top of my double crochet the same way that we did with our single crochets, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the gap. Now what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go back and do our regular linen stitch rows the same way that we did here with our single crochets, and I'm going to go around 3 times for that. So I'll start this first row where I went in, I did my single crochet the same way that we did at the beginning, chaining 3, single crocheting into the same gap. Obviously that gap looks a little different because it's with double crochets instead of single, so it's a lot easier to tell where the gap is. And I'm going to chain 1, single crochet into the gap, and then I will be going around with that pattern all the way around. And I'm going to do that for 3 rounds total, and I will see you right back here for our next special stitch. All right, so I am almost finished with my 3rd round of the single crochets, and it looks really good with the gap stitches. I like the way this looks in the size. So I'm just going to finish this up. So I've got a chain 1 right here. I'm going to single crochet into the gap, chain 1, single crochet into the gap, chain 1, and single crochet in the last gap. So I'm going to show you a way that you can finish off your squares once you get them to a size that you like. Again, this can be all solid. You could add in some more gap rows, completely up to you, but I'm going to show you a fun way that I like to finish them off in another fun stitch. So I'm at the end of my round, so I've already chained 1. I'm going to slip stitch right in here, and then I'm going to slip stitch right here. All right, so we're going to finish this off with a reverse single crochet, and this is a stitch that I really like that I read the directions for. I had no idea what I was doing until I saw someone do it, so I'm going to show you how to do it. So with a reverse single crochet, it's going to kind of go backwards over what you've already done, and you're always going to be pulling it to the right. In this particular square, we're going to be doing all of our reverse double crochets into our gaps. So the same place that we would have done our single crochets. So at the end, I am going to do my chain 1, and then into our gap right here, the one that we just made, we're going to go in behind, pull up this loop, and so you see it's kind of twisted, and then we are going to take this, yarn over, and then pull it to the right, and so you have that little lovely ridge. I'm going to show you how to do it again on the next couple to finish this off. So again, for this one, you could do it in every single stitch, so not just the gaps, but also into the single crochets. It's just going to make it a little bit frillier. So completely a preference thing. I'm going to go into the next gap, go in, grab the loop from behind, pull it forward, yarn over, pull through both. Could go into the gap, pull this loop, pull it forward, yarn over, bring it through again. I'm going to do a couple more a little bit quickly as I talk so you can see, one, how quickly this goes, especially because we're doing it in every other stitch, but also so you can see the pattern that it makes. This is a really pretty stitch that I like to do when I'm edging a shawl. I've done this on the edges of tops before, and again, it was something that looked very intimidating when I saw it written out, and I definitely did not do it correctly. And then when I saw the video, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So that's kind of what the border looks like. Again, we're doing it in every other stitch. Look how lovely and clean it looks, and it just adds a little bit more detail. So now that I've done that in all of the gap spaces, I am now to the corner. I am going to do it the same way that we've done in all the other gaps. So I'm not going to be adding any stitches here. So I'm going to go into the gap. Whoop, if I can keep it on my hook. Go into the gap, pull it up. Now I have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through both. Usually on these corners we've been adding stitches. This we don't need to. So I'm going to continue to work around so you can see that it just really softens the edge of our corners. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. I am now back to my original corner. I'm going to show you how we're going to finish this off for our beautiful little fancy linen stitch square. So I have not done the corner on this side yet. I've done the reverse single crochet right there. So I'm going to go in, go backwards, pull up a loop, and come through both. This is actually where I'm going to cut my yarn kind of the first time, because I'm going to pull it through this loop right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go in this little spot right in here, back to front, and then I'm going to pull that in. If I can do it without, there we go. Pull that in right there so it kind of mimics the pattern of the other corners. I'm just going to flip it over to the back side of my work, find a good place to cut it, leave myself a little bit of a tail to weave it in. I always double knot everything because I know how hard I am on things. Wiggle my hook through in here, pull this through, and then cut my tail. And that, my friends, is how you do the fancy linen stitch square. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below, as well as if you try anything with this pattern. Tag me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm super active on Instagram, Yarn Craft by Nicole. This would be super cute in a baby blanket or a doily. I think I'm actually going to use the rest of this yarn and maybe make some oversized coasters. So let me know what you are doing with this pattern, and I will see you next time.